Ladies and gentlemen, seekers of light and secret knowledge wherever you may be, you are listening to Points of Light Radio, the podcast dedicated to taking you past the apron and behind the closed doors of lodges everywhere. And here is your host, Stan Miller.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. It's wonderful to be back with you here on Points of Light Radio and continuing our journey towards light and knowledge. I hope you've been enjoying the segments I've been bringing you so far this year. It's been a busy year, hasn't it? We've covered a lot. We really have. And I don't know about you, but I'm really enjoying some of the material I brought you this year and some of the organizations we featured. In today's segment of Points of Light Radio, we will be revisiting an organization that we fellowshipped with on the April 24th segment of Points of Light Radio. And that organization is the Benevolent Protected Order of Elks. Just to give you some brief insight, because I've covered a lot of this information before in the April 24th segment of last year. But to give you some brief insight, the Elks were founded in 1868 in New York City. Today, they're headquartered in Chicago. To qualify for membership in the Elks, one must believe in the Supreme Being, and in the case of the United States, you must be 21 to join. I believe in Canada, it's 18. Right? The Elks has had some very prominent members of society within their ranks. Among them are former presidents Warren G. Harding, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, Dwight D. Eisenhower, John F. Kennedy, and Gerald R. Ford, right? Now, isn't it funny that with the exception of JFK, every one of those members was a Freemason, and every conspiracy theorist can remember that, but no one remembers that they were also in the Elks, as well as other organizations, right? Also, sports figures such as the late Babe Ruth, baseball player, as well as former quarterback Eli Manning. He's also an Elk. Now, my guest for this segment of Points of Light Radio is a gentleman named Sean Simmerman. Mr. Simmerman is the lecturing knight of the Oregon City Elks Lodge 1189. Right? How about we go let him shed some light on the Elks? But are you still searching for the light? Are you still thirsty for knowledge? Then just trim your lamp and follow me.
Sorry.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Simmerman. Welcome to Points of Light Radio.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, well, I understand that you are the lecturing knight of the Oregon City Elks Lodge 1189.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you tell my listeners and viewers about yourself, first of all?
So a little bit about me. I'm from Southern California originally, moved to Oregon about 4.5 years ago. And anyways, before moving to Oregon, I became an Elk. About 2 days after I became 21, I turned in my membership application, which you have to be 21 to become an Elk.
No way.
So yes, and I was very eager to become one. So I did that, got very involved with the first lodge I was a part of, which was the Orange Elks, 1475 in Orange, California. And anyways, ended up in Oregon. Now I'm at Oregon City. And I'm the lecturing knight here. I am also the Central District Chairman for Membership and Lapsation for the Oregon State Elks Association. So aside from all the duties and responsibilities I've taken on at our lodge level, I'm also highly involved with our state and our district. So pretty busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And now, tell us about the Elks themselves, though. Right? Like, how long, for instance, has the Elks 1189 Lodge been around?
So our lodge has been around since 1910. And off the top of my head here, I want to say that the Elks are in their 184th year as a whole fraternal organization. I think it's 184 years this year. So, but we've been around for about 13 years now, or 113 years, excuse me, as our lodge.
Okay, now what exactly do they do?
We are a charitable organization. Most of our work is dedicated to helping out our community. Anyways, pretty much we function as a social club, but that is not our main function. It started as a social club. Our main function now, we hand out scholarships to youth. We have a drug awareness program, an Americanism program, and that sort of thing. Every year we do about $35 million in charitable donations to communities across the United States and our territories. So, I mean, we're highly involved in helping out the less fortunate.
But what would you say your lodge does as compared to other, what makes, Elks Lodge 1189 unique, shall we say, compared to other lodges? You were in a lodge in California, for instance. What would you say the difference is?
Oh, I think what really sets Oregon City 1189 apart from all the other lodges across the United States, and no offense to anybody else, but honestly, I really feel like we have a huge sense of brotherhood within this lodge. I commonly joke about our lodge being the blue collar lodge. For a period of time back, we have two paper mills that are, I mean, literally about 2 blocks from our lodge that used to be completely active. And back then, I mean, our membership was through the roof. I want to say they had either close to or over 2,000 members. I mean, the numbers were astronomical. But the thing is that since then, we've shrunk. Our lodge, unfortunately, is now at 543 members, roughly, to date.
Wow, is that all?
Yeah, we've shrunk. Unfortunately, the paper mill's closed. People moved out of town. Hard times happen, and especially coming out of COVID too, it didn't quite help.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I feel like our lodge has really kept that blue collar quality. Because there's a lot of people that are middle class, working class, whatever you want to call them, people, and we all kind of seem to have our trade. And we all have a kind of an understanding of just having that, that normalcy of just kind of going about life and just, not, I guess, just not being pretentious, if I can say that,
Yeah.
we're all down to earth. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, I've been in an Army Reserve unit, and I've often said it's probably similar in that you come from so many different walks of life, but when you go out in the field with that reserve unit, it's amazing how all that drops away and you just become soldiers while you're there. And I imagine it's the same in a lodge where all of a sudden you're just Elks when you get there.
Yes, exactly. That is exactly where we're at.
It brings people together.
It does. It totally brings people together. It's a sense of community and a sense of fellowship, which is, I mean, a huge part of the teaching of the Elks is good fellowship. So,
yeah, I agree with you. And but you now you say you're the lecturing knight. Now,
yes.
What role would a lecturing knight play in the Elks?
So the lecturing knight, essentially the way that this works is you have a group of officers. So what we call are the chair officers, the 4 main officers that kind of guide the lodge. It's lodge leadership, if you will. Granted, we focus a lot on kind of the social aspects of the lodge. We oversee the youth activities, events, and that sort of thing. So essentially with those 4 chair officers, the lecturing knight actually is the first position. It's pretty much a 4-year commitment. You start off as lecturing knight, which is your first year. The second year is loyal knight. third year is leading knight, and then the fourth year you become exalted ruler, which is essentially the CEO, president, whatever, of the lodge.
Okay. And as a lecturing knight, you basically do some of the lecture work during the meetings?
Essentially, yes, because what I am supposed to do is give reports on the committees that I oversee, as well as the committees that I chair. So yes, in a sense, yes. Kind of now more days, I feel like lecturing has just become kind of a figure of speech, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, that is kind of part of my portion. I mean, essentially the way that it works is that every chair has one of the four principles of the Elks. So you have charity, justice, brotherly love, and fidelity. So my chair as lecturing knight, I oversee brotherly love,
Okay.
the good fellowship, the sympathy, and the kindness of interacting with others around you.
Okay, I see. Yeah, and you can. I think it's part of. I think you'll agree with me. It's part of the evolution of these different fraternal organizations that, at one time, it probably meant something very different. These positions or this degree work, for that matter, that you do, and it had meaning. It's there for a reason, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, by the way, are there degrees within the Elks?
Would as far as like the Masons?
Similar to that, with secret work and esoteric value and things like that, the degrees.
So I wouldn't say that there's degrees within the Elks at all. I mean, pretty much being an Elk, I mean, the way that some people look at it is either you're a member or you're an officer,
Okay.
but or at the core, we're all members. It's just the officers have taken on a little bit higher
I
duty
see.
to, continue the work of the lodge to help
And
things
when,
run.
sorry, when you install these different officers, like you talk about lecturing knight and so on, and exalted ruler, when you install them, is there a ceremony when they take over that role?
Yes,
Okay.
every installation of officers.
Okay. Now, why don't you tell me about some upcoming events that you might be having in the Elks 1189?
So some upcoming events that we have, as of right now, this Thursday, in the United States, Mother's Day
Oh,
is
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So this Thursday, or tomorrow, I should say, actually, as of the present date that we're talking, we have our Mother's Day program, which is a open meeting that the Elks do. It's open to the public. Every Elks Lodge is directed to do this by the Grand Lodge. So tomorrow we are having our Mother's Day program, which is a special event. We have a special ceremony. There's a ritual for the event.
Okay.
We were supposed to have a guest speaker come in. He unfortunately fell ill, so he will not be here. So we're going to have our officers and maybe some of our members get up and talk about either being a mother or the impact that their mother had on them as a child and as an adult. So aside from that, looking forward, the fun one at the end of the month is my birthday. We're doing an event down in our bowling alley for my birthday. It's an open all the members. I didn't want to play favorites and just invite certain people. I just said, you know what, everyone come, let's have fun. So we're doing that May 27th. And then after that, July, I think the last big event that we have coming up so far, July 3rd, I think, we're doing our family picnic, which is going to be a carnival style Western event is what we're planning. It's going to be a pretty substantial event out at our park, which is just south of our lodge.
Well, that's good. So you're very, very, very visible within the community. That's great. That raises the profile of the lodge. But now you did mention Mother's Day and things like that. Does what is the makeup of your lodge there? Is it young, old, women? Is there women in your lodge?
Yes. So I'm pretty proud to say this fact. Women are very visible in our lodge. We have actually quite a few women who are officers. Our leading knight is actually a past exalted ruler, who was an exalted ruler about 20 years ago. She's decided to come back. She's going to make another run at it, and she will be exalted ruler next year. Um, Aside from that, I mean, we have our lodge secretary. We have a lady that sits on our board of directors. They're all women. My mother actually is pretty involved in our lodge. They're auditing and accounts chairwoman, and she helps out with numerous other things around the lodge. So, I mean, we have ladies that are absolutely involved with this lodge day in and day out. As far as age goes, unfortunately, our median age is up there quite a ways. I would beg to argue that I'm probably the youngest member at our lodge. I'll be turning 26 actually at the end of May.
Oh, the ripe old age of, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, but we have a lot of members that are a lot older than I am. But you know, we're starting to see a lot more younger members come in, and I think getting away from COVID and all of that stuff is really helping out, and it's getting people wanting to get back and engaged in their community and in social and charitable work. So
That's interesting. But now you said your mother was in it. What drew you to the Elks? Was your mother in it first, or were you? Because you said you joined as soon as you could at 21.
So I actually I became an Elk because of my father. My mom actually is going on her second year of being an Elk.
Good.
So my dad and I have been Elks for a while. We talked her into following us in, and she said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So she became an Elk last year.
But what brought you in? Your father was in first, or you?
So yeah, so my dad was in first,
Okay.
and anyways, he pretty much, long story short, I volunteered a lot when I was in high school. I volunteered at World War II Air Museum and spent a lot of time there. So my dad became an Elk because of all of his friends. You know, they were all getting involved in whatever. And I was getting ready to turn 21, and he said, "Well, why don't you come to the Elks with me?" He's do a lot of good volunteer work, and it's a fun time. And, it's a good social environment. So I joined, and I didn't really know what I was getting into. And then I went through orientation and initiation, and then kind of started talking to some of the older Elks and really realized where I was going and what I was getting into. And I jumped in head first. I mean, I helped plan an event for Elks National Foundation, ENF is what we call it, and raised a substantial amount of money. So that was kind of just like my jump right off the diving board into what we call Elkdom. I mean, it was fun. So,
And I think that's part of it that I think many people don't realize. Like you said, you didn't realize what you were getting involved in, and yet because some people just think it's a bunch of older and middle-aged angry people just sitting around a lodge somewhere. It's a lot different than that. You can really be involved. You can really do some fun things, but also give back to your community and get a lot out of it at the same time.
yes, no, there's, honestly, I hear that misconception a lot, and that is not necessarily what it is. There are older people at the lodge, but they're not. They're actually very friendly people. Our order is the Benevolent and Protective Order of the Elks, BPOE, and it is commonly referred to as the best people on earth. And that is honestly the God's honest truth. But we have a lot of fun things to do down here. I mean, our lodge specifically, we have a 35-acre RV park. We have a bowling alley. And aside from that, I mean, we just have fun.
Did you find that the older people were really quick to take you under your wing and get you involved?
Oh yeah,
that's good.
Big time.
That's really important.
I would not be sitting here doing what I'm doing had I not had the motivation from the older people. So
older people giving back to it and then mentoring you up. And what would you say it's done for you being involved in the Elks?
Well, I think it's given me a sense of community, a sense of pride. And honestly, and I hate to keep bringing this up, but post COVID and just kind of the terrible nature that the world was in for a while,
Oh,
it really just kind of brought me back to life and gave me, it gave me life again, I guess. It gave me something to look forward to.
it gives you that third space, you know?
Yeah.
It used
Yes.
to be that people went to their family, their lodge, and their church. And today, yeah, you have. It's good to hear that there are those third spaces where a person can go.
Yes. No, and I completely agree with that.
And would you agree with me that? Well, put it this way: what would you say to people that are maybe thinking of joining?
Well, I would tell them to head over to elks.org, and maybe look up Elks National Foundation. Look at some of the charitable work that we do. Really read into it. I mean, because the thing is that at the surface, people have their misconceptions about the Elks Lodge, and I mean we can dive all into that. But I really think that what they need to be doing is focusing on what we actually do. I mean, here in the state of Oregon, we've donated over $15 million a year to our local communities across the state. So, and those numbers keep going up every year. We have a state major project here in Oregon, and every state does have their own major project, but here specifically in Oregon, it's the Elks Youth Eye Service, EYES they call it. We donated enough money to help build a children's eye hospital with the Casey Eye Institute up at the Oregon Health and Sciences University. And I mean, just hearing the stories of the kids that have been helped out by our charitable work is phenomenal. And that is happening all across the United States because of Elks, because of people like myself that just want to help people out. So
Yeah, that's great. Well, Mr. Simmerman, I do appreciate your time tonight. It's been wonderful talking to you, and all the best to you and the Oregon City Elks Lodge 1189.
well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sean Simmerman, brothers and sisters. I like that guy. We'll have to have him back here, right? Let's break down some of the things I seen. First of all, it's quite interesting. He and his father joined together, and then his mom joined. Right? I find that's a first, actually, though. A father-son joining together. That's the first. I've never heard about anything like that. At least not with my guests or in Points of Light Radio. I think that's wonderful. And like I said, then his mother joined. Right? And some things about that. He to carry on. He talked about how people come into these lodges from different organizations, but when they get there, they're all Elks, like he talked about, right? That's what they are, just for their time they're there working in the lodge or whatever, or meeting in the lodge, right? In other words, they brought his family together, but they also bring people from many walks of life together when they get there in different occupations. And I've often found that very interesting with lodges, right? I love the fact that he talked about being befriended and mentored by older and longtime members of the lodge. I've often said this here on Points of Light Radio. That's important. We need to tap into we need to mentor new people coming into the lodge. When I came into the Orange Lodge in 2123 back in Hamilton, Ontario, there were a couple members who really took me under their wing and mentored me, and and things like that. I was able to talk to them about different things regarding the lodge. And I think that's very, very important, right? The other thing is, I said this before, I love the fact that some people just love to be involved. And Mr. Simmerman talked about just jumping in head first. He got on committees, he got involved, right? Did the fundraising. He really loves doing that. And some people love that. And I love how they, like I said, the older members and the longtime members, let them do it. Why not tap into that energy, enthusiasm, and intuition that the new members have to offer, and the younger members, especially here in his case? And I think that's wonderful, right? We talked about how some of the roles within the lodge and some of the things, and even like, or in the case of different organizations, as well as how the roles or in the lectures they've evolved, how they've evolved. They probably had a bit of a different meaning or a different, shall we say, significance when they were drawn up, right? I think that's interesting, and I think that's something for a future segment of Points of Light Radio, right? Have these degrees, have these positions, have some of these lectures, have they evolved in their significance over time? That's something I'll have to come back to that, right? But it's wonderful how we talked about with him how these lodges offer people wonder what these lodges have to offer. They offer that third space. And I think maybe it's something that people are starting to look for now, in light of it's wonderful to get together over the internet and things like that. But, it's important to have that third space. People have lost, is that something, and there again, it's something for a future segment of Points of Light Radio. Have we lost that third space? Can these lodges offer that third space, right? I think that's very important, right? But, have you noticed like that I'm revisiting different organizations that I've covered in previous segments, especially over a year ago, and I'm trying to swing back to them so that we can kind of keep their profile up there. I mean, I think it was wonderful, to come back to the Elks. And how did you feel about this? Now, you've seen a Canadian lodge in a previous segment of Points of Light Radio, and I encourage you to go back and watch that, as I always say, because it'll help tie in with this. But you've seen a Canadian lodge on here. Now, he talked about how you have to be 21 to join the Elks in the States. In this country, I believe you only have to be 18. So some differences, but you've seen a difference in how, in the difference of maybe what the Elks is a little different in the United States. So maybe you'll have seen those differences, right? And we'll definitely have to have the Elks back. We'll definitely have to feature this organization again. I just love revisiting some of these organizations. I really do. But I think that's all the time I have to visit this organization this evening. But before I go, I want to remind you that this podcast is available on both YouTube and Spreaker. Please share, like, and subscribe when viewing Points of Light Radio on YouTube. You can follow Points of Light Radio on my Facebook page at facebook.com/Points of Light Radio. My Twitter handle is @POLightRadio. You can see the link to my Spotify channel, as well as my Points of Light Radio store. But brothers and sisters, it's been an honor and a pleasure meeting with you and my guest tonight. But until we meet again, just step into the light.